From a highly secure network of top secret locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider, the last edition before training camp. I'm your host, Mike Finger, joined by Express News Spurs beat writers Tom Orsborn and Jeff McDonald, along with sports editor Nick Talbot. We've got the full panel back. The Spurs now have a full roster after some dramatic late summer additions. The team got together. Jeff and I were able to see them in a semi-formal, not formal at all, run through in the Hill Country. We've got some injury news. We've got some bells and whistles to take care of before the team reconvenes. Just want to check in with the group, especially with Tom. We haven't heard from Tom in a while on the Insider podcast. How has your summer been, and are you getting amped up and ready for another season of NBA basketball?
Yeah, good to be back with you guys. Yeah, it's been a good summer. Tried to get a lot of rest. I saw one of the Spurs in an informal setting on Sunday.
That's what I wanted to get to early in this podcast, because I know Jeff is excited about this. The big news fan section. Like no longer.
Oh, no.
Not that.
No. I saw one Jeremy Sohan.
Oh, okay.
In an informal setting, and all I'll say about it, we had a brief conversation. I told him we're off the job. It's going to get busy. Just want to say hi, and he was so nice. He looked so happy out with his girlfriend, and it was a nice exchange. So.
Wow, that's some news that I did not hear off the air. That's interesting. I thought you were referring to the big new fan section.
No.
Take down the baseline bums.
No.
But Tom Orsborn has a productive, fruitful, interesting life away from Spurs Nation. So that's good that he saw Jeremy Sohan out for a while.
Jeremy and I hang out at the same places. That was pretty cool.
I see. Jeff, have you run into any Spurs?
Cracker Barrel
from the arena?
Jeremy Sohan goes to the Cracker Barrel, I guess.
No. No. It was outdoors. We were enjoying the great outdoors.
All the listeners are going to be guessing where Tom and Jeremy cross paths.
That could be a new feature on
street.
Yeah, that could be a new feature on this podcast. Where in the world is Jeremy Sohan
and Tom Orsborn
together?
We do have actual Spurs news. I'm not sure where we want to start. I also want to thank the great Bill Schoening for visiting us on the last episode of the Spurs Insider, being a great guest, actually recording his episode twice because of technical difficulties. Great to hear from him. He did a good job. But it's been a while since we've talked about the Spurs roster, just the Spurs current form, Jeff. And so in the last, I guess it's been a month since the last regular episode of the Insider, we have had the roster filled out, and we have had a significant bit of injury news with the number 2 pick overall in the 2025 NBA draft. Dylan Harper is not going to be working out with the Spurs when they start training camp in a couple weeks. What is the status of Dylan, and what does that mean for the Spurs as they enter this pivotal season, Jeff?
I mean, I don't want to make too big a deal out of it, but it is kind of a significant injury for a guy that's a rookie. Dylan Harper with his I guess he damaged or partially tore a ligament in his left thumb, which is important because he's a left-handed shooter and had to undergo surgery for that. And they're expecting him to miss pretty much all of camp in the preseason. And they haven't ruled him out for the start of the regular season. But me personally, I would be surprised if he misses all of camp in the preseason if he's, good to go and in the rotation game 1. So it is kind of a significant injury because it's the missing training camp piece that's kind of the problem, especially because he's a rookie. But really, for anybody, that's rough. We talked last year about like one of the problems Devin Vassell had, who was entering his 4th season, had getting started last season was he missed all of training camp in the summer and couldn't really get get his development in shape. And now you're talking about Dylan Harper as a rookie having to hit the ground running. So I do think it's a setback for him. I don't think it's a long-term problem, but it's going to take him a while to kind of be what we kind of hoped he would be as a rookie. And the one thing it did do is when you asked me in a couple podcasts ago to project the Spurs starting lineup, and I think it was pretty much an obvious answer anyway. But the only question I had was, would there be a way for them to get Dylan Harper in there? Would they rather start Dylan Harper instead of Steph Castle? And this injury pretty much answers that question. It's not going to be a question. I think we know what their starting five is going to be, and Dylan's going to have to come along as the season goes along. And it's a tough ask for a rookie. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly he assimilates once he's able to get back on the court again.
There was a scandalous viral clip going around earlier this offseason. I think it was all time kind of runs together, but of a Spurs player on some kind of podcast or interview revealing the before unknown, unheard of idea that the Spurs only practiced 8 or 9 times during last season, and people were talking about how crazy. Well, that's the NBA. Teams do not practice during the season, whether it's the Spurs, the Lakers, the Rockets, whoever. It just does not happen in the course of an NBA season. You have your shoot-arounds, and occasionally when you have more than one day off, you have a full practice. The reason I bring that up is these are the only practices for a long while that Dylan Harper might be able to take part in, or as the preseason. And so that is sort of significant that it's not like he's going to be able to catch up in practice once the season starts, because teams just don't practice. And I think that, again, like Jeff said, that's not going to be a killer in terms of his development, in terms of how much he contributes this year. But that is something to think about, Tom, in that he's not going to have that time during training camp, during those non-game reps, to kind of get in the flow with his teammates. And we'll see how much that affects his whole season.
Man, I missed that big scoop. NBA teams don't practice much during the season. Wow.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it goes on all the various, Instagrams and TikToks and what have you. And this is an indictment of Pop, that he was lazy at the end. No one practices during the regular season. It was amusing to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Mitch Johnson, keeping with the program, didn't practice either.
Exactly.
Man. Wow. No, Harper should be fine. It's something you don't want to see, but I think he'll be fine. He's been working out with them in informal workouts, and he'll be there. I mean, he'll be at the practices. He'll observe everything. He'll absorb as much as he can. So I don't think it's a major setback.
It's not the end of the world, but it is a setback.
Yeah, but not a major one.
So that brings up, I don't know if we want to get into the lineup weeds. What else is there to get into in this September? But okay, go ahead, Bismack. How does the signing of Bismack Biyombo affect the NBA championship race this year, Tom?
Hey,
how does it affect Victor Wembanyama's legacy? To get into like a first take type debate, how does signing Bismack Biyombo?
They don't
Victor Wembanyama's legacy.
They don't trust.
I don't really
Victor.
care, Mike. Just glad to have him back. Good guy.
Okay.
It's that they don't trust Victor. They need as many big men as they can because they don't trust him to stay healthy. I'm just kidding. The Bismack thing is very much like the Gorgie Jang thing from back in the day. They don't, he's a good guy. He's a good veteran guy to have around. Probably not going to play at all, but he's a very good veteran to have around. And if you have the spot, those are the kind of guys you want to fill it with. Last year when they signed Bismack, it was not quite an emergency, but kind of like they really needed a backup to Victor at the time, or that's what they thought they were signing him for, because Zach Collins had been traded and they didn't have any bigs behind Victor. They were having to scramble. So Bismack was going to be like the basically the backup, or at least a backup option. And then like days after they signed Biyombo is when Victor went down with the blood clot issue. And so Bismack became almost the starter at that point. I don't think he will have either of those roles this year for the Spurs if, everything goes to plan. And, barring some injuries to people, I think you're looking at a guy that's the 15th man on the bench, kind of like that Gorgie Jang role. But he'll be a good locker room guy.
In all seriousness, though, the Spurs did get caught flat-footed, so to speak, with their big man depth last year, and I think that they made a pretty concerted effort to make sure that doesn't happen again, because the games are going to matter more or should matter more in January, February, March, April. And you don't want to get caught in that spot where you're having to give Sandro Mamukelashvili center minutes and, just not being able to have any size at all, just getting completely pummeled
and killed
on the
Sohan there a
boards.
lot last year. I don't think they really want to do that.
They were getting killed on the boards in game after game, even when Victor was still healthy. They didn't have that depth behind him, especially after they traded Zach Collins. Like they were caught really thin there in the front court. And, like Jeff said, they're not going to expect to play Biyombo regular minutes, maybe not any minutes at all. But this year, if something happens to their big men behind Victor Wembanyama, you have 7-footer Luke Cornett, who I want to talk about later in his first public appearance with the Spurs. Highly entertaining. Kelly Olynyk, Bismack Biyombo, like that is they are going to have some depth there in case of emergency. And I think that's sort of significant.
Yeah, they have a couple bodies between Victor and Bismack, which is important.
And it's in keeping with what one of their goals. It wasn't a top priority, but they wanted to have the end of the bench filled with veteran guys this year, rather than, the Blake Wesleys, Malachi's and whatnot. But anyway,
this year you have Jordan McLaughlin, Bismack, Waters.
But back to my original point, one of my favorite stories last year was sitting down with Bismack late in the season and talking about his humanitarian work in the Congo, his homeland, and just a good guy to have on the roster.
There you go. What I was going to get into earlier with the lineup thing, back on the Dylan Harper deal. Let's say he is not ready game 1 against Dallas on October the 22nd, followed by a trip to the Pelicans on October the 24th. That's a little over a month from now. Let's say he's been cleared for basketball activities, but you're not going to turn him loose yet. How do you manage the point guard position? Coach McDonald, you come from a coaching family, a hoops family. Do you start Stephon Castle alongside De'Aaron Fox and just stagger those minutes and make sure that one of them is always out there and keep Stephon Castle taking those point guard reps and running the offense when Fox is on the bench? Or do you the other point guard on the roster right now is Jordan McLaughlin? Does that mean minutes for him? I sort of tend to go towards the former, but how do you look at it, Coach McDonald?
That's a really interesting question, because you are going to be you went from, man, we got way too many ball handlers to we don't have enough ball handlers in a second. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I don't know what you do with that second unit ball handling. I don't know that you want to completely reconfigure what you want to do with your starting lineup. I don't know. You've stumped me. I do think
something that you hadn't even considered before I brought it up.
I do think, however it washes out, you probably are
running your fantasy football team all summer.
I do think, however it washes out, you are going to see more Jordan McLaughlin minutes to start the season than you might have expected. Either way, I mean, if you think about it, last year, what they would have done was they would have let Malachi play more or Blake play more.
We also
they're not here anymore.
Paul and Trey Jones last year.
Yeah. Do you think of all of it is kind of interesting because a month ago we would have thought, how are they going to get all these guards on the floor? They just have too many of them. It's a good problem to have, but it's a thing to address. And now it's just like, well, they've lost like 5 ball handlers from last year and Dylan Harper, and so you are kind of short there. And
I don't think that De'Aaron Fox is any kind of, there's no real injury situation with him, but he has had some bumps and bruises over the past year, and you don't know for sure. I guess you don't know with anybody for sure, but like if something happens there, you're kind of up against it. Like you said, gone from too many point guards,
I
point guard
mean,
galore to being sort of short there.
I mean, fans are gonna love it because you could get to the point where it's David Jones Garcia time.
Hey, we're not going to get into that again.
Yeah, we stepped in it that day. Everybody hated us.
The Spurs two-way allotment is full now too, right?
Yes, they're full of everything.
That's good. That's good.
We're done. Yeah, we're done. We got training camp and we're done. I don't think any cuts in training camp will be surprising. I think all the guys you think are going to make the roster and the two-way spots are going to make the roster and the two-way spots. So there's not a lot of battles there.
No extensions coming up. The Jeremy Sohan is eligible, correct?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I don't have any intel there.
The Spurs made a public appearance as a group in uniform on the basketball court last week. That was a fun, I think, genuinely nice story to cover. Jeff and I went out to Ingram, Texas, small town near Kerrville, affected by the summer floods. Spurs had donated money as part of the relief efforts, much needed. Decided, Jeff, as you wrote, they wanted to do more than sign a check, and went out and held a surprise sort of walkthrough exhibition, dunk fest, three-man weave, all kinds of fun stuff, throwing stuff, selfies with the kids for the students in Ingram, and it was very well received. And I'm not exaggerating, the loudest basketball arena / gym that I have been in years, and I've covered like NBA finals. I've not had my ears ringing like that. Those kids just shrieking for an hour, seeing the Spurs in the gym. Jeff, what are your impressions of that?
Oh yeah, hearing all those teenagers shriek, it was like being at a Backstreet Boys concert. No, not Backstreet. Who would be the equivalent of the Backstreet Boys nowadays?
Menudo?
Menudo? It'd be like at the Menudo concerts. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was like basically a Menudo concert in Ingram.
Jeez.
No, there was yeah. I mean, to go further back, it kind of reminded me of some of those videos of everyone shrieking at the Beatles when they came over.
This is terrible comedy, but it was I am not joking about how loud it was in that little place. It's a little gym. All of our listeners know what a high school gym is like in Texas, in small town Texas. It's a little bandbox, and I'm serious. It is louder there because of how small the gym is and how loud the kids are shrieking. It's louder there. You can't hear who's talking next to you than in an NBA arena. It was just those kids loved it. Talked to students and the principal there and the coaches there, genuinely moved and touched and talking about what a great thing this was for these kids who were not all of them necessarily had a relative affected or displaced or killed by the flooding, but all of them dealt with just the weight of the devastation in their community all summer long, and to give them just a day to have fun and experience some joy and to feel like, there are people in their community who care about them. That was a really cool deal.
Should be noted they did the same after the tragic shooting in Uvalde.
They did indeed. It was the same situation.
Speaking of the speaking of the hill country, like it obviously doesn't bring anyone's loved one back. It doesn't repair the property damage, but for those kids, it was a really welcome distraction. Just you could see the joy on all the kids' faces, and they, it wasn't a free for all, but they did have some free run of the place. Like you could get on the court and go talk to Victor and take a picture with him. Like I just like, I mean, everyone had a good time. And when you talk to the talked to a coach out there, and he said basically what I just said. These kids have been through a lot. It's a small win. That day was a small win for our community, just to have that day of distraction, of joy, of just feeling like they're not just some small town that everyone's forgotten about. And so that was a good thing, and it got me thinking. It's kind of, maybe I don't want to overstate this too much, but that's part of that do-gooding community service thing is part of the Greg Popovich legacy. I think that is going to live on, even though he's not the coach anymore. From talking to people, the first seeds for this kind of came about in August when Mitch Johnson and R.C. Buford and Brian Wright and a bunch of other staffers went out to Ingram. After the floodwaters had kind of receded, but there's still a lot to do, and they went on kind of a community service sort of mission out there just to kind of survey the damage and help out how they could. I think they served meals and stuff out there that time. And it was Mitch who said, we need to bring the players here. When the players get back from, being scattered across the earth for the summer, we need to bring the players here. We need to come back. We need to bring the players. And so it was his idea. And I can't speak for Mitch Johnson, but I believe that's got to be a Pop influence there, just having worked for Pop and seeing how he
did the same thing in Uvalde, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Is Mitch remembered the impact that the Uvalde trip had, and remembered, hey, we can do that again and have the same impact here.
Yeah, and so
I think you're right about the Pop influence there.
I do think that's a part of his legacy that's going to continue with the Spurs long after he's not even around the Spurs anymore. And so I guess that's a point I want to make to it, that Pop's his DNA is still running. It's another sign that his DNA is still running strong in this organization.
To get back to the volume, this is how loud it was. Keldon Johnson was given a microphone, and you couldn't hear him because the screaming was so loud. Keldon Johnson doesn't need a microphone ever to be heard. He's screaming into a microphone, and he's not the loudest person in that gym. He's not one of the loudest 200 people in that gym. He really enjoyed it. Keldon kind of lives out, not in the hill country, but hill country adjacent, and on his farm with his chickens and his pigs and his cows and whatnot. And he came over and talked to us about wanting to, just like Jeff said, wanting to be there and to be part of the community and to carry on what they had done in Uvalde. And you could tell it meant a lot to him. Victor seemed to really enjoy it. He was very, with open arms, literally and figuratively, embracing all those kids and letting them come up and signing shoes and posing for selfies. And so many kids had signed, they just took the sneakers off their feet and were going up to teachers saying, I'm never going to wash these shoes. I'm never going to wear these shoes again. The Victor loved it. The whole team loved it. One of the highlights I wanted to get to, and then I'll ask Jeff for his favorite moments from that, but there were trick dunks. In a high school gym, you can pull off the dunks that you can't pull off in an NBA arena because there's a wall behind the backboard. So you had the athletic players, the guys who are going to be in dunk contests one day and have been in dunk contests before. In the case of Stephon Castle, Carter Bryant just dazzling the masses with shots where you throw the ball high off the wall behind the backboard and catch it off the carom and dunk between your legs. It was a really cool thing. But my favorite moment was newcomer Luke Cornett grabs the ball at the top of the key, and he holds his arms out, and he starts that clap over the head where he wants the whole arena to start clapping in unison. You can picture it. We're not a video podcast, but
he really set it up, man.
He's really setting it up. He's got the whole arena.
Arena's clapping
in unison. The slow clap. And he grabs the ball, and and the Spurs, his teammates, are already cracking up because they know where the setting, but the arena is at a fever pitch with the slow clap. And he throws the ball off the backboard and maybe tries to go between the legs, but doesn't even get close and stumbles to the floor. it was the whole place erupts in laughter. But I think we're going to really enjoy having Luke Cornett around.
He actually
that
airballed
moment.
it. He was trying
Oh,
to
he
throw it off
airballed.
the board and he airballed it. He missed the
There you go.
entire backboard. So it was so anticlimactic. Keldon fell over. He was laughing so hard. He was literally on the ground laughing so hard. What I noticed, you asked my favorite moments or whatever. One thing that I noticed going back to Victor, and it wasn't the first time I've noticed him this way in these certain situations, just how savvy he is with all this stuff. And how he always seems to realize, the eyes that are on him and how to work it to his advantage, to everyone's advantage. I pointed this out to you while it was happening, that the Spurs have their own staff photographers around, just taking candid shots of things that are going on.
Shout out to Taylor Hare.
There you go. At one point,
birthday today.
At one point, Victor grabs Taylor Hare and like motions him over here, and he is setting up. Victor is now setting up the shot. I'm gonna stand here in front of the bleachers like this. I'm gonna hold my arms like this. You stand right here. No, not there, not there. No, this way, a little more this way, over my shoulder. So you get all the kids in the background. Like he's basically setting up his own publicity shot. I thought that was just amazing. Like this, the stuff that he thinks of. And I saw that when when we were in Paris and he went out to La Chênaie, and it was another similar event with a bunch of kids. He was kind of the same way that day. I think this thing we kind of alluded to earlier, where he has come up with the idea for the fan section, and that was his idea. Like it was his idea to have this soccer style fan section. I mean, that's just another example of he's got a little promotional gene in him. He knows how to promote stuff. He has ideas, and he wants to.
And there's a cynical view of that, but
right,
which is obvious that people hear that and think, oh, he's just doing it for the photo, and he's just doing it to go viral and what have you. But my reply to that is like, what's necessarily the harm in that? And that isn't that a good thing? If the promotion leads to more attention for the Hill Country, if you're trying to raise money for the Hill Country, or if you're trying to generate more interest in the San Antonio Spurs basketball team, if you're trying to make the arena experience better, if you understand how to work social media and you understand how to attract eyeballs, then I guess I'm trying to you can be cynical about it, but also realize it's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the way kids these days are, to use an old.
It's the way kids these days are, and if he understands that better than the people who've run the Spurs for 30 years understand it, then he'd be foolish not to add his generation's spin on things. And I think that's really cool.
I also think with some of this stuff, you can look at it as this is how much he cares about. I mean, even being a part of the Spurs and the community and stuff, like he cares a lot about it. I mean, I know we don't have this discussion because it was always ridiculous, but there was that strain of fan that was always like, well, if we don't trade for this guy, or we don't win a lot more games, or we don't sign the right free agents, Victor's just going to leave. He's just going to leave. He doesn't want to be in San Antonio. He's going to leave. But then you look at him, well, he's doing a lot to be a part of this team and this community, even so much as to, and change the game day experience, like to have that kind of hands-on sort of idea and want it to be implemented. And I think at least for now, that should give people an idea of how committed he is to this team in this town.
Right. We've in the sports media business, we've had this conversation with people over the years, like with college football coaches, NBA players, what have you, where some coaches, players, you get the feeling that they're being cooperative and nice and helpful to the sports writers because they feel like they're going to get something out of it. And there are certain people who are cynical about that and think, well, that guy's just being a great quote and helpful and cooperative because he wants to get something out of it. My answer to that is like, wouldn't you be stupid not to do that? If like why be difficult and have like ethics and have standards and say, oh no, I'm not going to be nice to the media because they can help me. I'm not presenting this in the clearest way, but I think that some of you understand me. Like even if you're doing it just in a transactional way where I'm going to be nice and I'm going to be outgoing because it'll get me more attention. Like what's the harm in that? Um, maybe I'm on an island here. Maybe I'm not making any sense. But I think that more people should do that.
It's
Like,
nice to
why
be
not be
nice.
nice? Why not be nice? Why not be helpful? Why not set up the perfect social media photo when you're at an event like that to make more people see that you've been to Ingram and you've been hanging out with these kids? Like, that's a good thing. Anyway, I think I guess the silence here.
No, Mike, you're
I'm-
no, Mike, you're exactly right.
I don't know. It just got me to thinking about some of the players I've covered, not maybe including some Spurs, but not necessarily Spurs, just over the years, over the decades, about how you're like, that guy is so fake. Like he's being nice to me now, but as soon as the camera.
Have you ever heard I came up with the phrase once that might sound a little crazy, but I think there's some truth to it. I call it "fake it till you make it."
That's a phrase you came up with, or
Yeah, I came up with.
are you
That's
faking
a
it till you make it?
12-step. That's a long held 12-step.
Are you faking it till you make it right now? Is that what you're doing?
I came up with that phrase shortly after I came up with the phrase "I need a vacation from this vacation." I also came up with that one. But the point is, if you fake being helpful long enough, you're actually helpful. If you fake being nice long enough, you're actually nice. Like Tom said, it's a 12-step deal. I didn't actually come up with it. But here's the thing. There's a gentleman in the news this summer, and I know you guys have been on vacation. You may not have heard about it, but you might remember him. He used to live in San Antonio. It's a fella by the name of Kawhi Leonard. And I don't want to dogpile on Kawhi Leonard, but and Kawhi Leonard just didn't let us know him. He might be the nicest guy in the world. He just didn't open up. I'm sure there's various reasons for that. I'm not judging his character. He just did not let people in. But there's no way that he would have gotten into that kind of visit, that we're talking about in Ingram, just because he did not have that personality. There's no way that he would have done the Spurs fan thing like Victor is doing, with the section there. That just wasn't his deal. He did not talk to the media. People did not get to know him, and that's certainly his right. But how much more beloved would he have been if he had let more people in? How much more would he have had fans on his side if he had just been a little more into these types of things? It's a choice he made. He's a successful player. He won a championship after he left the Spurs. I'm sure he's donated a lot and been great in his community in other ways. But my point is, he never did fake it until he made it, in terms of being like a guy who's out there doing community stuff, letting people get to know him personally. And I think that his brand probably suffered a bit because of that.
I mean, just in the interest of fairness, a guy called Tim Duncan wasn't into
That's true. That's true.
What's cool is when you see guys doing stuff when the camera's not there. And I think of Trey Jones. We mentioned Uvalde. Trey kept doing stuff, kept contributing to that community when the cameras weren't away, which was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's shades of gray here. I'm not trying to create villains. Jeff brought up a very intelligent. That's
Can you say that
that's
again?
a new phrase in this podcast.
Can we clip this for the promo?
Jeff made a very intelligent, insightful reply there when it came to Tim Duncan. I think Tim Duncan also, though, when you talk about, wasn't there a hurricane relief in his home?
Yeah. And to be clear, like,
and Kawhi did too. I'm just saying that for people who may be cynical about the Victor Wembanyama playing to the camera and understanding social media and understanding that type of thing, I think you have to sort of take the good with the bad. Like in a way, to get anything noticed these days, you have to have that type of social media awareness or awareness of publicity. It's just the way the world works now.
Again, it's just a product of his age. Like, do you ever go on vacation and you see those like millennials are old now, Gen Z looking couples that are taking 15,000 pictures and poses, and it's just for the Instagram.
Yeah.
That's just how kids are these days. If you're going to take a picture, you might as well take the best picture you can.
So back to Tim Duncan. I remember one thing that he did a lot was trying to raise money for cancer prevention, and he had that bowling for dollars. I don't know if you guys remember that, but his mother had died of breast cancer, and he was very active.
And here's the thing: if he had grown up in Victor's generation, he might have made more. He might have understood how to make more money for that bowling deal. Like Victor would have had it all over he would have had all kinds of ideas on how to promote that thing. And
I feel like if Tim were 22 right now, he'd still be an old man.
I think you're probably right.
Some people are just introverted. Some people are extroverted.
That's true.
I guess I don't know why we're going down this rabbit hole, but like,
what else are we?
Why not? Why not?
If the Tim Duncan era Spurs had gone to Ingram for flood relief, Tim Duncan would have gladly been there. He wouldn't have skipped it or anything. He would have been there.
Yeah.
I think he would have been a little uncomfortable with people running up on him and having to be the center of attention in a way that Victor is very comfortable being the center.
He would have had some awesome layups to finish those 3-man weaves.
It would have been all bank shots.
He would have been thrilled that they were doing any kind of practice, because Pop didn't let him practice during the regular season.
Well, that wasn't much practicing going on at this thing.
I know, but my point is back to our ridiculous thing about practice, or somebody's ridiculous thing about practice.
Well, practice will begin in a couple of weeks. There's media day on September 29th. That's a Monday. Tuesday morning, bright and early, the first workout. What if anything do you think you're most looking forward to when we meet the group for media day on Monday morning, Jeff, on the 29th?
What am I looking forward to for media day?
Who haven't you heard from that you want to hear from?
Mike Monroe. I'm sure he'll be there.
I don't think he's going to be there.
He better not be.
I don't think he's going to be there for the first time in 70 years since the George Mikan media day.
I don't know what I'm looking forward to for media day. What I'm looking forward to from camp and preseason and early is I want to see how Victor looks. Because, he's been off for a long time. I want to see how long it takes for him to shake the rust and see if he gets back to how quickly he gets back to on that path to superstardom that he was flirting with when he went down last year. That's one thing I'm going to be interested in seeing.
I'm looking forward this season to Castle. I want to see Stefan Castle, how he follows up last year's Rookie of the Year performance. I think it's going to be pretty impressive if they can work out the X's and O's. But I think I'm thinking he's going to be pretty darn good.
That's something to look forward to. We will talk to you shortly after media day. We'll run down the whole event. Jeff's enthusiasm for being back at a press conference again. I know he's missed it the past few months.
It's going to be weird without Pop. It's going to be weird without Pop. I'll say that. It'll be the first one without
around
Pop.
His fellow reporters. It's going to be weird without Mike Monroe, who I still think might turn up, even though he has announced his retirement. Longtime friend of the podcast.
He might just show up on accident.
I think he might.
Thought he was going to Starbucks and ended up there.
But we will run it all down for you next time. And until then, take care of each other and keep it real.